Good evening, everyone. It's a little bit late, which is usually when I do these videos on It'll be on Sunday evening this semester, and very pleased to have you in the class. Pleased to be teaching it, and very pleased to be reading your postings this past week. It's clear that you all have lots to say, lots of interesting things to say, and I'm eager to read them, and I'm eager for you to respond to the things that I say as well, along with responding to each other. No reason to be embarrassed about what you say or to worry about being critical. I think that's part of what will make this semester interesting. Um, the this video will be a regular part of the class. And I'm hoping that you will look at this video on Monday, or if you're up this late, you can look at it Sunday night as a kind of way to think about the past week's class, what we talked about, some of the issues that came up. I'll try to mention some people from time to time, but mostly it'll be kind of reframing the issues at the end of the week and some of my comments about them and about what you've been saying and helping us move to the next level of understanding both of this and what we'll be looking at in the following week. And I'd be interested in your comments on this video and throughout the course, interested in your comments on the course. I'm also hoping to do office hours, which will be live office hours done through Skype. Particularly not Skype, though, probably through Google Plus Hangout, and I'd like to be able to do those office hours once a week, once we get started late in the afternoon, and hopefully a group of people will be able to participate together. It'll give us some sense of the community of students in the class, be able to see each other and talk with each other in real time. I'd like to begin to talk a little bit about what happened this past week and the nature of your conversation during this week and my sense of where you got and my understanding of where we were needing to go in this. I was happy to see from the very beginning that you're taking kind of critical mode to the reading. Of course, the reading this time was more conjectural, theoretical. Some of the other reading will be a bit different, but still, as you're doing this, as we're thinking about insiders and outsiders and so on, there's no reason for you to be simply sponges absorbing things. I want you to be asking particular kinds of questions of the readings. Where is the reading going? And the same kinds of questions that we talked about with insiders and outsiders. Who is the audience? What are the questions that are being asked by the author? What kind of strategy, insider, outsider, how should that be? I'm not sure that we need to spend too much more time on this insider-outsider business. We've spent pretty good of time talking about it this week. But another question would be, what do you think is the approach in the course? What should be my approach in the course? Is it outsider to outsider? Is it insider to mostly insiders? Generally, the academic approach would be never to assume anything about the other party. And that would mean perhaps outsider to outsider. But I don't know that that's exactly where we need to go. And some of you said, I think quite appropriately, that we need to partake of all the four different ways of thinking and understanding. Because as we're talking about this, there is no absolute truth. We're trying just to get as close as we can to getting some sense of what these issues are. And we have to strive to do it in some different kinds of ways. So thinking about that as we engage in the course will be useful. And I think we'll come back to it as we move forward. The Green essay is quite interesting. As I think I mentioned, it's the introduction to his book. He's got a 2-volume set on Jewish spirituality, a collection of sources, of readings. And I think that he sort of adroitly skirts around the issue, what is Judaism, what is inside of Jewish history. What does it mean to be Jewish? How do you do that? And the question that Ron raised, what are the boundaries around Jewishness? He sort of doesn't want to deal with that, which I think is a good idea because it's very difficult to get a handle on. And I think, as not sure, Jackie or someone said that the people who are the insiders at a particular moment, they're the ones who decide what's inside and what's outside. And some aspect of Judaism might have gotten to be inside if there would be different people making those decisions. The Karaites in the Middle Ages originally were inside, and then later on they became outside. You'll study more about them in the next part of the course. So he talks about language and the kind of language that we use to talk about things, as well as the fact that you can move forward with that to think about the books that are so central for Judaism and for the whole idea of conversation, of talking about things, of not having only one answer to things, of being able to have a language to engage this. And the purpose is not simply, or perhaps is not at all, to get the right true ideas that then we can all believe in the same thing, but somehow or other to be part of a culture, to be part of a world that is engaged in trying to figure out what that right thing is. What is the right way to behave? What is the right way to be with God? And even though there is something called halakha, which we'll talk about, a right way of being, a right way of doing things, there is always a sense that that right way of doing things is somewhat dependent on human beings and on the Jewish community. And if the Jewish community in the next generation decides to change things around, they can do it. And in a certain sense, we have some midrashim, some rabbinic commentaries that say, well, even God has to abide. If majority rules that says that a certain thing is going to be the case, and they do it appropriately, and they use the right resources and sources, then sort of God abides by it. Even with regard to calendar, there's a famous statement that says, Ele moadei Adonai asher tikra'u otam b'moadam. These are the appointed seasons of God, which you shall declare at their right time. So they're God's seasons, but you're the ones who declare it. And therefore, whenever you say it is, that's when it is. Yom Kippur, you're the one who declares when Yom Kippur is. And even if you make a mistake, that's still when Yom Kippur is going to be. So I think these are sort of introductory essays just to get us in a certain kind of self-critical, reflective examination way of thinking about the materials we'll be looking at, which is good since we'll be coming up to our readings this coming week. We're going to jump right into looking at the Bible, that original source within Judaism and the Jewish tradition, and modern ways of thinking about it. And the first reading is going to look at the distinction between sort of medieval and ancient ways of thinking about how to understand the Bible and the more modern, which might be called the historical critical way of thinking about it. And once we do that, our strategy is going to be using historical critical methods, but we'll be looking at a number of methodologies, including the literary methodology, including theological issues, including, I say, historical archaeology. We're going to have to rush through a bit. We can't spend the whole semester doing it. There's many, many interesting aspects of thinking about how do we study this material. What is it in the first place? If you want to ask what is Judaism, we also could ask what is the Bible? How do you define what is this series of texts, this number of different kinds of things? When you think about the Bible, there's so many different kinds of literature within that, it's hard to figure out. So what is it that unites them? What is it that brings them all together? So we'll be talking a little bit about that as well. And as we do it, it's always a good idea to sort of step back and say, well, I bring a lot of stuff when I think about the Bible, since you might say I've been studying it or reading it or dealing with it for all of my life. So sometimes people come into this and then have their preconceptions challenged. So that's what happens in a university class, and I think we'll be open to it, but also open to responses, to pushback, to all kinds of questions as we engage this material. So I wish you a good week, and I'll be very much interested in reading your responses, as well as if you have some response to this video on the website.